Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a gripping, real-life historical thriller of grassroots resistance set right in the American West. It's a story that has it all: secret societies, midnight raids, dramatic courtroom showdowns, and some seriously high-stakes political maneuvering. We're looking at the story of Las Gorras Blancas, a group whose brief, explosive existence completely challenged the foundations of power and property in late 19th century New Mexico. To really understand why this conflict erupted in the first place, think about this chilling phrase: with barbed wire came hunger. That pretty much captures the stakes right there. We aren't just talking about a minor dispute over property lines. We're talking about how a single, seemingly simple piece of capitalist technology, barbed wire, rapidly enclosed a landscape, decimated an entire traditional way of life, and quite literally starved a local population. It was the absolute perfect recipe for a secret rebellion. All right, part one, the origins of the land grants. When you think about the geography of the Las Vegas land grant in San Miguel County, the sheer scale is just staggering. This wasn't some small patch of farming soil. We are talking about over 500,000 acres of prime grazing land, timber, and water. Now, under the Spanish and Mexican governments, this land was granted to groups of settlers to encourage westward expansion. And crucially, when the U.S. took over the territory in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo explicitly guaranteed that the property rights of these former Mexican citizens would be fully respected. But here is where a massive ideological clash kicks in. On one hand, you have the traditional Hispano system, which was based on communal land grants. For decades, the local population relied entirely on this shared commons. You'd have a small private plot for your house, sure, but you relied on the shared pasture, water, and timber to actually survive. On the other hand, you have the incoming Anglo-American system, which was all about private homesteads. This system was built on exclusive access, capitalist enterprise, and bounding the land with barbed wire. It was literally a collision of two totally different ways of viewing the earth. Moving on to part two, railroads and barbed wire. Picture this. It's 1878. The railroad arrives in New Mexico, and it completely transforms the territory's economy overnight. Suddenly, this land is connected to national markets, which makes it incredibly valuable. Of course, this influx attracted ambitious lawyers, cattle ranchers, and speculators, many of whom were operating as part of a powerful, corrupt syndicate known as the Santa Fe Ring. They used obscure legal loopholes and thousands of miles of newly invented barbed wire to effectively enclose the public commons for their own private profit, totally cutting off the local communities. Check out these tax assessment numbers from 1890 because they really show the immediate devastating fallout of that land grab. On the high end, you've got European cattle baron Wilson Waddingham running a staggering 22,500 head of cattle. In the middle, the average for the newly arrived Anglo enclave is over 2,300. And way down on the other end, the local Hispano subsistence farmer averaged a mere 16 head of cattle. 16! The economic disparity was extreme. The local population was pushed to the absolute brink, forced into low-wage labor just to put food on the table. Which brings us to Section 3, the rise of the Whitecaps. In the spring of 1889, a clandestine vigilante group emerged right out of the shadows. They called themselves Las Gorras Blancas, or the Whitecaps. Reputably organized by three brothers, Juan Jose, Pablo, and Nicanor Herrera, this group decided to take the law into their own hands. Operating under the cover of darkness and wearing white hoods to mask their identities, they quickly swelled to a massive force of around 1,500 members. And their tactics? Very direct and very destructive. They cut miles of barbed wire, burned the barns of the wealthy elite, and destroyed railroad ties, all to reclaim the commons. And the escalation was incredibly rapid. I mean, we're talking 0 to 60 here. In April 1889, their first major raid splintered 4 miles of fencing belonging to British ranchers. By June, they were burning down commercial sawmills. By August, they were bold enough to destroy the fences of the local county sheriff, who surprisingly actually ended up supporting them. By November, what started as isolated wire cutting had escalated into open violence, with a full-blown gun battle erupting against a railway agent at Roe. Part 4, the resistance escalates. Now here's the crazy part. Even though their tactics were totally illegal and highly destructive, Las Gorras Blancas enjoyed widespread, unbreakable support from the local community. When authorities tried to crack down and arrested the Herrera brothers in November 1889, 63 armed horsemen demonstrated outside the local jail. Attempts to prosecute the group completely failed. Local juries just flat out refused to convict. And in several cases, key witnesses mysteriously disappeared. The authorities were utterly powerless against the sheer numbers and unity of the local people. But they really weren't just a mob. In March of 1890, they posted their manifesto, Nuestra Plataforma, throughout the town plaza. Listen to this. Our purpose is to protect the rights and interests of the people in general, especially those of the helpless classes. The manifesto explicitly stated they weren't against all development, or even all lawyers, but they demanded fair treatment and justice over corrupt bossism. It totally humanizes the group, showing a surprisingly sophisticated and impartial demand for equity rather than just blind vengeance.
All right, Section 5, the shift to political power.
This brings up a pivotal question. Could they actually achieve more in the courts and the legislatures than they ever did in the shadows? By the fall of 1890, virtually every fence enclosing the Las Vegas land grant had been cut. With their immediate goal achieved, the leaders decided it was time to trade their white hoods for the ballot box. They wanted to legitimize their fight. Their new strategy was to form a brand new political party, El Partido del Pueblo Unido, or the United People's Party. And their success was astounding. Backed by the massive working-class support they had cultivated, the new party absolutely swept the local San Miguel County elections. Juan Jose Herrera, the alleged mastermind of the masked riders, was elected probate judge. His brother, Pablo, was elected directly to the territorial legislature. They had literally taken over the very system that had oppressed them.
Which leads us to our final section, the fall and legacy.
Unfortunately, this political victory was incredibly short-lived. In 1891, Pablo Herrera served just one single session in the capital before resigning in absolute disgust. He delivered this legendary mic drop quote on his way out. "There is more honesty in the halls of the territorial prison than in the halls of the legislature." He realized that the systemic corruption of the Santa Fe ring was simply too deep and too entrenched to fix from the inside. The unraveling of the movement after that was swift, and it was tragic. Shortly after resigning, Pablo Herrera was assassinated in the street by a deputy sheriff, who was never prosecuted. Around the same time, the territorial governor hired the notorious Pinkerton Detective Agency, a private security force famous for breaking up labor movements. Their operative, Charles Siringo, successfully infiltrated local labor unions connected to the movement, sowing paranoia and division. Under the weight of these coordinated attacks, the movement dissolved. By the mid-1890s, the barbed wire fences had quietly returned to the Las Vegas Commons. So, we're left with this final provocative thought. How does the brief, explosive rise of Las Gorras Blancas reshape our understanding of power and resistance in the American West? They may have lost the ultimate war for the land, but for a brief, shining moment, a community organized, fought back against the industrial confiscation of their common lands, and actually won. It completely challenges the traditional narrative of the West and reminds us of the profound length people will go to protect their way of life. Thank you for exploring this history with me, and keep questioning the past.